Hello, everybody. Is this thing on? Can you hear me? Awesome. Great. Well, I'm very excited to be with you guys here today with some wonderful colleagues that I've had the joy to work with to talk to you a little bit about how we have implemented some transformation with our sales tools stack in IBM. So specifically, I'm Amanda Mikesell-Carrera. This is a kind of fun full circle moment for me because when I started off in IBM, we were actually beginning our implementation of Salesloft, and I was using it as a seller. I've interacted with it as a sales leader, and for the last 2 years, I have been leading our deployment for sales tools and an initiative we'll talk a little bit about, which is our seller workflow automation initiative for North America digital sales. And I am joined by some wonderful sellers, Josh and Hannah, and then our partner in crime at Saleslove, Nick, who's been really huge in deployment, and I'll let you guys take a second to introduce yourselves in a little bit more depth.
Yeah, so my name's Josh. I've been working at IBM for about 2 years, and I work in our digital department using a lot of our sales tools to sort of drive as much volume as possible in our data and AI department.
And I'm Hannah Elwell. I've been at IBM for about 8 years now, and in the digital select industry with automation. Digital sales, we are constantly outreaching. Salesloft is a tool that I use every single day. So if you guys want to know how your salespeople feel using this tool, we're great. Yeah, great references.
That's great. And my name is Nick Harris. I lead our strategic services team here at Salesloft, and we partner and support our strategic customer segment base to make sure they're wildly successful.
Love that. Great, so just an overview of what we'll cover today. This seller workflow automation initiative within digital sales specifically really highlights making sure that we have effective deployment and adoption of our sales tools across the organization, making sure that we're partnering with our vendors across our different tools offerings to make sure that we are making progress across our different initiatives. If there are any product needs, interfacing with that and co-creating on any strategy that's necessary for us to make sure we're successful. And then I'll be very excited to talk to you guys towards the end of our little panel here about some of the work that we're doing lately, interfacing and embedding AI into our process to take away some of those non-revenue generating activities that our sellers are spending a lot of time on and give them time back to interface with their clients and increase their productivity. So a little bit of a highlight of key challenges here, and if any of you are in the process of or have experience with deploying sales tools within an organization, I'm sure that many of these echo with what you've experienced. We have many different business units selling products within our sales organization, and often if we're not intentional about communicating between them, they can operate in silos. And that is a disservice to us because we want to make sure that any best practices that sellers are experiencing within one of those verticals is accessible, and we are scaling that where it's applicable across our different business units. And within that, making sure that we are being compliant, right? Data governance and controls is hugely important for us. Digital sales within IBM has a mix of existing clients, but we have a huge focus on new clients and white space. So we're doing a ton of prospecting to try and drive clients to interact and buy products with IBM for the first time. So how we do that and allowing our sellers the room to interact but make sure that they're doing so in a compliant way. We need to make sure that that's built into our sales tools processes instead of just relying on behaviors to drive that. And then obviously adoption is hugely important, and having been a seller myself, part of the sales organization for some time, not adoption for adoption's sake, really making sure that it's meaningful for our sellers and understanding the why behind they are and they're not using it so we can address and scale practices, but also address any issues that we have. So those are some of the key challenges, especially from like my perspective, that we handle within the organization. But Josh and Hannah, I'd love to hear your perspective a little bit about these challenges and others and how they present in your day-to-day regarding some of this.
So I mean, as Amanda said, we have a bunch of different brands, and then we have many, many clients. So as a digital seller, I think I have about 350 active accounts and then thousands and thousands of other accounts that I'm prospecting into. And at any one time, you can have about 9 or 10 other sellers who are also prospecting into those accounts with other products. So being able to know what accounts that I've touched, who have I talked to, what did I say to them, and then more importantly, what has other people done with those accounts is something that's extremely crucial. We don't want to be prospecting to an account only to realize, well, I've been bothered by 7 other people today or in the past week or in the past month. And then also knowing, well, one of the other sellers is already talking to other business units. Maybe I can go and have a conversation with them to get some information before I reach out. And this is something that's difficult to do just within a CRM where people are manually putting in that information. You know, all the sellers, we love updating the CRM. So Salesloft is a spot that will automatically do that for us. So the moment we open up an account, I know who the contacts are, who has touched them, what type of information, who's had meetings with them. And then sometimes I'll even go, well, I want to contact this account, but there's another deal that's in progress right now, and it's sort of the same people who I need to talk to. Maybe I should wait a few weeks before I give them a call, find a better time to reach out to them.
Yeah, so now that IBM and Salesloft have had a partnership for several years now, we have years of data of who contacted who. So last week, I'm looking and I've got a brand new white space account that I'm reaching out to. I realized they replied to an email 3 years ago. And I can go back and look into that data now and know the exact conversation that happened. I don't know if anyone has ever made a cold call and then they pick up the phone and they say, your company just called me 3 hours ago. Like gut feeling that you get of like humiliation is so horrible, which has really solved itself with Salesloft in our organization. 8 years ago, before Salesloft, we were doing such a manual process. I would have to go back and search through Outlook just to reply to an email to follow up on my cadence, right? So I know that there's still businesses that are on that manual process. My life as a seller has changed. My success as a seller has changed since Salesloft, and I would say I can count on one hand, probably three fingers, the amount of tools that have really made a huge impact on my sales career, and Salesloft is number one.
That's such a perfect example of just what Randy and Chris were talking about, of impacting the buyer experience and improving that in a way that feels very personal to them.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that especially those of us who have lived life as sellers without something like Salesloft can definitely come to appreciate it and what it's done for us in our sales careers. I will definitely say that especially when I first came into the role, and I'll get into this actually, I think, right? I lied. I'll get into that in a second. We'll talk through some of the ways that the challenges manifested themselves within our adoption and how there's like need for continuous improvement with that. But that actually ties well into this discussion about how we are approaching the seller workflow automation initiative specifically in digital sales. We've highlighted, I think, on a couple of these points, but really relentlessly user-focused when we go through this. A cadence of interviews, top-down, bottom-up, on a regular basis with our executive team, with our managers on the front line, with our sellers to really understand, again, what's going well, what's not, and then actually going and addressing those concerns. You know, I think sometimes it can be easy to know what those problems are, but the hard work behind the scenes that sellers may or may not see is what we're actually doing to fix those problems. And then making sure you close the loop at the end. That might sound kind of obvious, but if you go and fix it and you don't tell sellers or the teams, hey, we went and we addressed this concern, it may go unnoticed. They may still be stuck with that negative perception of what was their past experience. And you really want to make sure that you're demonstrating that feedback leads to change within all of the things that you're doing. Communicating with your leadership team using data. Again, I think this is something that seems pretty straightforward, but I've always gotten the advice, and it works well, stick to the facts. If things aren't going well, and if they are going well, I almost think it's more important, if not equally important, to talk about what's not going well when you're talking to leadership, and then the actions that you're taking to fix those things. And the data within Salesloft or any of your other sales tools are going to be really vital in making sure that you have that messaging and you know exactly what to tackle. And making sure the best practices aren't stuck in silos. We talked a little bit about that. That's huge. And it's fifth here, but by no means the less important of any of these is making sure that you have a strong relationship with your vendor partners. Certainly wouldn't see the success that we had without them, because it's not just internal blockers and how they can help us, but also if there are things that we need done in partnership from a product perspective or from other angles, that relationship is there. And I actually would love to pass it over to you, Nick, to talk about how that partnership has been so essential in our success at IBM.
Yeah, of course. What makes IBM unique in their approach to Salesloft is the executive sponsorship, and it has to start there. That has to be the foundation as you work through the change management curve. What is important to executives and leaders will be important to sellers and all team members. And if that is not there, or if the organization feels that this might be a short-term initiative that people care about for a little while and then will go away, that will be evident in the adoption. So I think everything starts there, but from my perspective, I would love to hear, as a seller, how does that impact you when you know that your executives care about something?
Yeah, so I am constantly going back and looking at the reporting myself, even though I'm not a manager. I am looking at the reporting because I want to make sure I look good. Like, I want to make sure that what I've been communicated from management, from director level, that I am achieving those things and exceeding those things. So for me, I know that maybe it's just my very competitive nature, but I know that that's important to them, so I will go and make sure like I am on top of everyone else. So I love the reporting feature too, because the managers, directors can see it, but then also it allows me to like drive my success.
Yeah. Also that you know that it will be consistent and it will still be important to your leadership in 2, 3, 5 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the absence of that data to leadership is really difficult, right? You can't address problems within your sales organization if you can't actually see where they're happening, and especially at the scale of our organization and the client set that we're delivering and solutioning to, it would be, I think, probably, I'll take the liberty to say, impossible to do without the data and the buy-in from our leadership. Certainly, what we're about to talk about would not have been possible if we did not have executives from the top down talking about how important it was that we do this in our space with huge volume against each of our sellers. We live and die by our sales tools, right? And how they're being used and leveraged is absolutely critical to how we do business.
It also comes back to like you said, when we have an issue, if we need certain cadences or if we need to make changes, having that executive sponsorship so I can come to you and say, I have this issue, and then you have the power to be able to go get help to fix that. Without that executive sponsorship, then... Absolutely.
That's huge. That's a great point. All right, well, a specific example, and I think it's apt because we're here with Salesloft, that we talk about how we've driven adoption and utilization with Salesloft. This 2022 figure is what landed in my lap when I took this job. We were at just under 40% utilization, and this was basic utilization. So this was sellers going in once a month and doing one activity in Salesloft. So for any of you who are part of implementation of tools, the bar was really truly down here for us, and that was kind of scary to walk into. But what I had to say, again, having some of the experience, is like, we need to uncover the why of this. And that's a theme here. Always go back, and when in doubt, to the basics and the why of whether something's good or bad. And we uncovered a lot of different things, but there were 3 primary issues we were running into. So lack of integrations, the biggest one being that we actually at the time did not have an integration with Salesloft in our email system. So that was a pretty significant blocker for us. All emails that were being sent out of Salesloft were coming from a subdomain instead of, AmandaMikesell@IBM.com. So you can imagine what kind of hit that was to our credibility when we were reaching out to prospects. Prospects weren't even sure if it was us reaching out to them. And so sellers, understandably, were saying, why would we use Salesloft if any emails we send are coming not from us? I'm just going to use my email system. So that was probably one of the biggest ones. Bias against past issues, we've talked about this a little bit as well. Improvements have been made in other areas, but not necessarily, I think, effectively communicated to the teams. And so they still had a lot of misconceptions about what the platform did or didn't do. And that bad experience fueled them not wanting to use it. And then from an enablement perspective, I think that ties a little bit into the second one as well. Sellers weren't really armed with enough information on how to properly leverage the tool in a way that to them felt like, again, leveraging it in a way that would make them successful versus it being a push to adopt because their manager or some other person was saying you have to use this. And so we went back as a team and with Salesloft, and we really wanted to discuss, how do we work through these objections. And
those are some hard and honest conversations.
yeah, no, absolutely, for sure. I mean, Nick and I were laughing about this over dinner last night just to be able to talk about the journey of where we've come from. But the honesty and what was not going well really launched us into a place of being able to take action. So within 6 months, we drove that 40% to 80% by focusing on very little else other than fixing the issues that I just talked about. We worked with our global team, and our global team worked with our CIO's office to push forward that Outlook integration that had been stalled for quite some time. And that by itself, I think, was probably one of the biggest drivers of increased adoption for a number of reasons. A, obviously, it made the tool more usable. But B, it was this pain point that sellers had been talking about for so long that we were able to say, we listened to you, we fought for this, we delivered this, and we kind of made a big deal out of it. We brought Salesloft on site. We did a lot of enablement around it. We were like, this is like a new day for Salesloft. And sellers flocked to it and then started, the early adopters of it made sure that the maybe laggers that maybe wouldn't have done it by themselves came into the process. We made sure to have meetings with our leadership and the managers on any other funneling down issues. Did they need enablement on Salesloft to know how to leverage the analytics and insights? Did they see anything specific with their sellers that we could address? And then making sure that we were delivering on that enablement on all levels to make sure that everyone had the information they needed, they could use the tool, and we were delivering that in a number of different ways because we've talked about this. Sellers receive information in different channels. We had a lot of frequent virtual enablement, but from my experience, not a lot will replace a good on-site workshop. And so we made sure to bring that to all of our sales centers. And Nick, if you have anything to add about what we were able to deploy.
I think that's the number one thing we've learned along this journey is that there's not going to be one magic solution to drive enablement and to drive adoption. It's a lot of things, and you have to meet sellers where they are on their journey of adopting a new way to work, a new operating rhythm. But yeah, for a lot of sellers, on-site enablement works best. We have recurring and really predictable virtual enablement options. There is self-serve enablement. And then also, again, the way that IBM has invested in the people and the processes to make something like this possible.
Yeah. And then it was all sunshine and rainbows, and there was never an issue ever again, right? No, obviously not. We had to continue this process over and over again. When we solved one problem and people moved forward, another one came up, right? Another challenge presented itself. And that's just been a loop of iteration that we've been working on with Salesloft over the time from that 6 months, I guess 18 months later until today. And that's paid off in dividends for us. We now see consistent adoption of power users, which Salesloft defines as users doing more than 200 activities a month in the tool. And I would say the vast majority of our sellers are far exceeding that metric. But we're just making sure that we stick to the data. If there are areas where there's lower utilization, going and continuously talking to those teams, again, why? Then addressing those issues, feedback loop. And making sure that we have that from rep to leadership level consistently. It's never over. There will always be a new challenge or somewhere where we can do better as an organization in servicing our sellers across our sales tools. And Josh, Hannah, if you guys have anything to add about how that's impacted you or how Salesloft in general has served you in this journey, I'd love to hear.
So at IBM, I must have about 100 different products that I need to sell and when I'm going out to clients and whatnot. And as they were saying, you can't just send out a blanket, hey, this is what we do, I'd like to chat with you, no one's going to respond to that. So you need to have a targeted message. Being able to come up with that target message and knowing which one works, when you have 100 different products, can be really, really complex. So one of the nice things is when you have Salesloft, you can go in there, you can look into those cadences, and you can say, I want to do a campaign on whatever product it may be, and statistically you can see what's working, what's industry, what are getting the best conversions. I don't need to do the guesswork of being able to go, what's the right message, how do I build it, where do I find the information, how do I do that, and then start going for it. Right away, for any given product, I can go in there and see what's working best, and then as well as that, once you've dropped in that list, it almost starts going on autopilot. Yes, you need to do your little changes, you need to make sure that it's more personalized and all that, but at the end of the day, you show up in the morning, you open up Salesloft, and you kind of do what you need to do. You don't need to think about what's the next step, what's the next thing that I do, what's the right message, where am I in that cadence, where am I with that client. So having that tool to be able to manage my day-to-day means that I save hours each day.
Yeah, I definitely love the customization of Salesloft, but to do another side of it that Josh hasn't already mentioned, I personally love like the rhythm. We learned about that a little bit ago. Whenever someone opens up my email or clicks something within my email, I immediately get a notification on my phone on Salesloft, and so we heard earlier that cold calls are dead. I don't personally think so. Maybe that's just me. Maybe because I have like a baby voice and people are like, wait, is this my daughter on the phone? Like, I don't know, I've gotten that a lot. But I've actually see a lot of success in cold calling. So the fact that I can see the moment someone opens up my email or clicks on something, I'm calling them. Like I'm calling them from my app on my phone, or no matter where I am, because I have a better success rate talking to someone on the phone than just like sending out mass emails personally. So the fact that I can have actionable items at my fingertips has made me so much more successful as well.
I love that. Yeah, I think that all of this has been really integral in getting us to where we were, probably I would say at the beginning of this year, where we were just at steady state of people leveraging our tool stack, making sure that they were successful with what we had, but we had to start thinking, especially in this age of AI, we've been talking a lot about this today so far, and I think we'll hear some more in the next session, but how do we take that to the next level? How do we increase productivity? We were noticing our sellers were spending a huge amount of time, again, in non-revenue generating activities for sourcing lists, for working across different tools and different screens to try and find information, and that was impacted not only from a time perspective, but also a skill perspective. Right? Different sellers had a different skill level when navigating these different data sources and information, and we really wanted to streamline and automate what we could for sellers to make them more successful and give them time back to sell more. And so that initiative that we've been working on and are very excited about has been the IBM Sales Assistant. This is us using our own AI products internally and trying to make sure that, especially in the beginning, from the perspective of sellers pulling their accounts and territory, and then finding relevant prospects and personas against the product sets that they're selling, instead of them having to do all of that manually, we're building that in based off of the best practices of some of our top sellers, including Josh and Hannah, actually, who have been a huge part of that. And it's currently deployed within our digital sales organization soon. I think it will be across others, but it was a huge effort cross-department for IBM within our CIO office, sales enablement, obviously digital sales and our developer teams to make this happen. And I would love to hear you guys talk a little bit about how thus far, in the kind of infancy of how we're deploying it, it's impacted you and helped your productivity.
So me personally, this Watson X Sales Assistant is probably in the past, this past year has really come into fruition. Being able to use AI within my day-to-day sales activities, I hadn't started doing that until this year. The past few months, I've seen an increase in reply on email, my scripting or my cold calling, my format, how I use that actually I've had longer times on the phone with people. People have stayed on the phone longer with me. And I've been able to pull things faster, pull marketing documentation, pull my prospecting list. It's a chatbot that I can ask, can write me a LinkedIn post, pull me a territory list with this product install base, and I can work a lot faster, and it's been much more productive for me as well.
So I really, really like this project because I was able to work in it as we were sort of starting to develop and give some feedback on it early on of what's important. And at IBM, we have a sales tool that does everything. We have many different screens. We have many different sources of data. So this comes back to what I was saying earlier. Sometimes it can be complex to go, okay, well, who's the list? Who's the buying persona? What are the key points that I need to talk about with any individual product? What are the product codes? So on and so forth. Lots of information that you need to go through that's in PowerPoints, PDFs, whatnot. And that can take hours to go through. What's wonderful with this is I can sit down there and go, okay, well, what are my best products? And it's going to go into all of our sources of data, and it's going to find out these are the best products that are selling. Okay, what are the best industries that they're selling into? It'll pull that information for me. It'll then pull the list and the buying personas from our contact platform that has all our contacts in it. So instead of me needing to go there and go, okay, well, here's my preference, here's this, here's that, what market, what industry, I want people who are in finance, so on and so forth. Using natural language, I'm able to ask it, what are my best products? Who are the people who I should contact? What are the contacts that we have that do that? And then I'll even go a step farther and go, okay, well, for this buying persona with this product, what would be a good intro email? Now, we've all used AI products and intro emails and whatnot. You don't necessarily want to send it right off the bat. You should maybe make a few little modifications. But having that template to start with, again, saves hours and hours from my day instead of me spending easily a day building out a campaign, if not 2 or 3. I'm able to have that campaign, or at least the template of that campaign, built out in, I think the demo that we did for digital took 5 minutes.
Yeah, 5 or less.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, it's really been powerful for us. And I would say, as a summary of this whole discussion, at the end of the day, if you are working on deploying a sales tool stack to your organization and working with sellers, they're your client, right? You have to be really deeply rooted in the why of things going right or wrong and what they need, and be going back to that constantly with what you're doing to address those things, and also making sure that you're up to date with the new whys. And for us, that's been hugely successful, especially within our deployment of Salesloft. We're never done. We're hopeful that if we're back here next year, we have even more progress to show. And this AI assistant project is really exciting for us. I hope that you all are finding creative ways to embed that automation into your processes. And offline, once we're done with this, happy to talk to anybody about that and brainstorm and mind share. But thank you all for your time today. This was a lot of fun to talk to you all, and I hope that you got something fun out of it.